Happy Victory Day to your comrades, and I was just really upset to see this take about how supposedly the Second World War was a war of empires. Now, Americans have been fascist for a long time. Read Michael Parenti, Black Shirts and Reds. He explained it very well. American leaders would have supported the fascists if they could get away with it, and they did support them for a long, long time, and they continue to do that. But what is upsetting to me about this is that it implies that the USSR was an empire. It was not. Okay, it is insulting to the memory of my ancestors to hear such a thing, because one of my grandparents, he died defending not only his motherland, but also other people. We actually only found out recently, a few years ago, that he is buried in a mass grave in Manchuria, which means he went through the entire war. And in the last stage of the war, when the Soviets were helping to fight off the Japanese, this is in the latest stage of the war, my great-grandfather died. Now, another one of my great-grandparents was wounded pretty severely, and he became disabled for life. But he was a communist, okay? Up until his death, he stayed a communist. And those were the majority of the Soviet soldiers. They were communists. And the astounding number of communists we lost in the Great Patriotic War, what we call it here, it is one of the reasons as to why the Soviet Union didn't last so long. One of the reasons, okay? So there were many, many, many reasons. You can, again, read in Parenti's work, read in Socialism Betrayed, the book that I recommended before, read about more reasons as to why the Soviet Union dissolved. I talk about some of these reasons here as well. And one of the reasons was because so many communists, actual communists who learned theory, who tried their best to help their local communities build communism, and I'm using the word communism colloquially here, not theoretically. So they were helping those people, those soldiers. They were actual communists who were fighting against the fascists, and because so many of them died, we had a lot of lack in human resources. We had fewer and fewer people who actually knew what communism was, people who knew what communism was from slogans, from posters, people who were preoccupied with rebuilding a country devastated by this war with fascists. So please do not spit on people's graves by saying that the USSR was an empire, because it was not. And I'm not justifying what the government did, what the party did, by some anecdotal evidence. Learn the actual history of the USSR. It was very nuanced. It was not perfect, okay? It was not a happy utopia. Yes, the leaders of the party did make mistakes. Yes, everybody made mistakes. Lenin made some mistakes. Stalin made some mistakes. Khrushchev made a ton of mistakes. But we've got to look at it all from a historical materialist standpoint, not from a binary black and white, oh, they were just as bad type of a look, because this is limiting our ability to learn from the mistakes of the past, and this is not leading us towards collective liberation. It is actually stopping us. It is very convenient, very great for the American empire now to blur that history, to make us believe that the USSR was just as bad as the United States. No, it was not. And I'm here to attest to it, because if it wasn't for the USSR, I would be dead, my parents would be peasants, and we would live in a colonial hellhole, which is kind of what we are facing now. It is getting worse and worse, just like everywhere in the world. So please be mindful. Please learn your actual history. Read Parenti. Go listen to Lady Izdihar and other historians of the USSR, and stop spreading this nonsense.